What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me, where today we're going to go ahead and create this design. Now, as always, there's links to everything in the description down below. You'll just need the canvas size and the palette, and be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram when you're done. If you didn't already know, I post weekly tutorials here on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button down below. But I also post 3 exclusive tutorials every single month over on my Patreon to Patreon supporters. With the catalogue now at over 60 and 3 more added every single month, it's going to continue to grow. So make sure to come and join the family over on Patreon. And with all that said, let's get started. So once you've created your canvas, the first thing we'll do is change our background color. So if we go up to our layers and we go to our background color here, in the palette, we're going to grab this color here in the bottom right. So with our background, if we go to our layers, we'll have an empty layer. What we then want to do is go to our colors. We're going to grab this color here, the middle color in the first column, and we're going to go to our brush library. We're going to go to the option of calligraphy, and we're going to grab the monoline brush. And if we tap on the monoline brush, I'm going to go to my stabilization settings, and I'm going to bring the stabilization up to about 50 and max out the streamline. That just makes your lines really nice and smooth. And because we want to create a particular shape that has nice smooth edges to it, that's why we're going to do that. And my size is set to about 7%. That's fine. It doesn't need to be any bigger or smaller. So now you should be able to see my stencil on the screen, which will actually give you a guide as well as to what to draw. So we're going to start over here. I think this is the best place to start, and I'm just going to go ahead and just follow that round all the way around and just let that run back in naturally. So a little something like that, and then drag and drop the color in. You can, if you want to, then go ahead and maybe refine some edges where you maybe want to adjust the shape a little bit more, but something like that is fine. And as you can see, we just need to also make a cutout. But for that, we'll go to our colors and we'll just double tap to select black for a moment. We'll go ahead and go to our layers and create a new layer. And we'll go ahead and draw in an ellipse. Something around about this sort of size for a moment is fine. Hold your pen down and you'll get a perfect ellipse. And then you should be able to drag and drop the color in. And then with that, we'll just go ahead and grab our cursor. We'll move it into position and just try and just match up into this sort of space here. And I'll just distort mine just a little bit, making it a little bit bigger. And then once you've sort of made a cutout in this sort of space, just simply go to the layer, tap on it and use the option of select. Make sure color fill is grayed out and not turned on. Then go back to your layers, go to the main area here for our area that's going to hold all our paint, tap on it and use the option of clear. Then you can go ahead and with the ellipse that you created, just swipe it to the left and delete it. Next, let's go ahead and make this a little bit more 3D. So we'll go to our layers. We'll swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the two. Go to your colors. Grab this color here. So the middle color in the second column, and drag and drop it into this shape here. If we then go ahead and grab our cursor and we move the shape just down towards the bottom right slightly, we can create that 3D edge to the shape. And just something thin will do the trick, maybe even something a bit smaller than that, just around about this sort of size. You can as well, if you want to, go to the uniform option and maybe just scale it down in size just a little bit and then move it into that bottom right position. And that will just give you a little bit more perspective to it. But a little something like that will do the trick, and tap on your cursor when you're done. And while we're here, we'll go to the layer, we'll tap on it and we will alpha lock it. We'll go ahead and go to our colors. We'll grab this color here in the bottom left of the palette. We're going to go to our brush and change it to airbrushing and the soft brush. Bring your opacity down to something maybe around about sort of the 40 mark, and your size maybe around about the 15% mark. And we're just going to shade up a few of the sides. So I'm just going to shade up over here and then blend it out to the left and just darken up this area over here. My light source in the background is going to be top left, so I'm just darkening up around here. I'm going to reduce my brush size down to a smaller size, around about 4 or 5%, so I can get into here and just darken up in here. Blend that out to the right and then darken up a bit more too. And up here, I'll darken it in this space and blend it up towards the top. So I've lowered my opacity so I'm in complete control of those colors. Let's then also go ahead and add some texture to the top of the surface. So we'll go to our layers. We'll go ahead and above the layer here, we'll create a new one. We'll go to our colors and we'll grab the middle color in the second column. We'll go to our brush library. Under materials, we're going to go ahead and use the Blackwood brush. The size doesn't really matter. We just kind of need to fill almost the whole screen. So we're just going to go ahead and just give a big coat of this cool texture onto the screen. Then grab your cursor and just maybe distort it a little bit so we can match up to the angle a bit more. So maybe just flatten the top edges a little bit. It shouldn't really make too much difference because the pattern itself doesn't really get affected by it, but just a little bit of this distortion may help it stick onto the surface a little bit nicer. Then go to the layer, tap on it and clip it to that top surface. Before we carry on, let's add in our light source. So let's go ahead and we can actually tap on that texture and we can go ahead and merge it down. So it's on that top layer. And we can go ahead and create a new layer, drag it down to the bottom. We'll go to our colors. We'll go ahead and double tap in the top left to select white. And if we zoom out of our canvas, we'll go to our brush, change it to airbrushing and the soft brush. We can bring the opacity back up to 100 and we can make the size nice and big, around about sort of 30 to 40. And in the top left, just lightly blend out towards the right hand side. So just add in a good chunk of color and blend it out to the right. That then gives us a light source and a direction, so we can add in some shadows nicely after. Let's go ahead and add some paint. So let's go to our layer. We're going to go right above it and create a new layer. We're going to go to our colors and we'll grab the red first of all, top left of the palette. We'll go to our brush library. We're going to go into painting and we're going to use the turpentine brush. Now the size is probably going to be around about the 5% mark. What we've got to do is we've got to create a blob of paint and then a nice little sort of smudge around it. So to start with, we're just going to go ahead and just create like a mound of paint, and it's going to have to be built up with this brush. So just create a bit of a mound of paint and then just sort of spread that out by just sort of being a little bit rough and just slowly sort of smudging it left to right on the top surface here. So pushing it outwards, but make sure we've got somewhat of a bigger blob area there at the side of here. Then go to your colors and grab the orange. We'll repeat that over here. So I'm going to go ahead and again just create a bit of a blob. We're kind of looking at it from the side, so that's why we've got the blob. And then I'm just going to smudge out the paint. And it can be a little bit messy. It doesn't have to be super pristine. It can be where the artist has just dived into the paint and created a big selection. There we go, we've added in the orange and I can smudge that in the opposite angle as well. We'll then go ahead and go to our colors and we'll grab the yellow. We'll add in a nice yellow blob down here. This yellow really will come to life once we add in the shadows. So for a minute, it's quite a bright tone here. A little bit of yellow. We'll then go to our colors and grab the green and just continue to make our way around the bottom here, all the way around the side. So again, a nice big blob and then some nice streaks, and you can be really random with those streaks and just let them really smudge into different areas. That's fine, as long as we have a bigger area. Go to our colors and grab the blue. Add in a big blue area here, and because this is a little bit closer to us, you can also get away with just maybe making it a little bit bigger than the other ones. So anything on this side now can be a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to go to my purple. Add in another blob over here. And again, just add in those cool little smudge lines. So I'm pressing really lightly just to see what little streaks just get picked up onto the canvas or onto this top surface, and just seeing what we can smudge out by just adding in a few little streaks. And then we're also going to add black and white into the center. So if we go to our colors and we grab white in the middle of the first column, we can add in a whiter area over here. Again, a blob and then just like a really big smudge. That's fine. So we're kind of just chucking in a big white area in the center, smudging and streaking that out. And then we'll go to our colors. And we're not going to use black as such. We're going to use this one here in the bottom left to start with. So the bottom left of the palette, bottom of the first column. And we'll just chuck in this darker tone here, just like so. Same sort of principle applies. Nice and sort of streaky, and then just make your way towards the white a little bit, so you can just sort of create where the artist is maybe overlapping a few of the colors here to create other tones. So I've just added in a big sort of smudge here of color, and then I'll go back to my colors and grab white again in the middle of the first column and just overlap that a little bit, and just you'll kind of blend them together and create like little streaky areas of grays. We can even go to our colors and maybe grab the blue, for example, And just chuck a bit of blue in the middle here as well, just to add in a bit of variety again to the colours that have been sort of smudged about a little bit. Now, once you've done that, you can take a look at your colours and maybe make a few bigger if you need to. So I'm going to grab my purple, for example, and just make this area a little bit bigger and a little bit more sort of smudged out. And I'm going to go to my blue as well. And I'll just make this one a little bit bigger. And likewise the green. Just sort of smudging that out like so. Once you've created your blobs, we're then going to go ahead and go to our layers, create a new layer above them, and tap on it and clip it to them. And change the blend mode from normal and change it to overlay. We're then going to go ahead and go to our colours and grab the middle colour in the first column, so the white. You might want to reduce your brush size down to about 3% now, and because the light source is coming from the left, the sort of top edges of the colours, we're going to go ahead and just add in a brighter light source on the top there. So just sort of streaking in. It can be nice and random, a little bit like that. Likewise on the yellow too, just streaking in a little bit of a highlight in that top sort of left edge, and the overlay should nicely sort of bring in a few colour tones of that colour. So I'm just adding in a little bit on top of there, a little bit on top of the blue too. You don't have to cover the whole thing, just nice and streaky, a bit random, be nice and sort of loose with it. A bit of a blob there. We will also add it onto the top of the black as well. So it will be very minimal, but it's okay for the moment. Then on the same layer, we're going to go ahead and go to our colours and grab the bottom left colour in the palette. And we'll add in some shadows. So you've added in the top left of each blob a highlight. So in the bottom right-ish and round that side, we're going to add in a sort of shadow. So just round this edge here and over to the right hand side, just adding in a little bit of a shadow. It will look great now in the yellow space because it will bring it to life a bit more. And then I'm going to add in a bit more over here. You can add some towards the top as well. Again, you don't have to do the whole of the colour space. For example, with the blue here, I'm just going to do a bit of the blob and then a few streaks outwards, but just to kind of show that there's a blob of paint here. So you can achieve that by just creating like a rounded sort of shape around the bottom area. A little something like that, and then just add in maybe a little bit in the streaks. The black again, we'll add some too, just to be sure. And the white on this occasion, we'll just try and add a little bit too as well, but it's going to be quite tricky to pull that out. So once we've done that, we're actually going to go to the layer. We're going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it. So it's really going to make them quite strong and contrasty. Now, if you want to, you can actually lower one of them down, say the top one down to maybe something around about 70%, just to take a little bit of that top edge of the colour out a little bit. Next, what we're going to go ahead and do is add in some additional colour around these blobs. So we're going to go to our layers, and just underneath our colours, we're going to go ahead and create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and change the blend mode from normal and change it to the option of hard light. We're going to go back to our colours and change it to the red in the top left. And we'll go back to our brush and change it to oil paint this time. Now the size for a moment's around about that 8%, and all we're trying to do here is just add in a little bit of extra colour, so it's not fully streaky. We've got a little bit of sort of colour around it, so we're just smudging in some extra colour around the colour that we just added in. So just trying to add in excess basically all the way around. A little something like that. The difference being, if I move that over to the left and turn it on and off, we've just expanded on that. There's a bit more residue basically. Then we'll go to our colours and grab the orange and make our way round across that top row again. So we'll just add in some colour around the orange. It's fine. Again, that's that excess, a little bit sort of messy. It's going to just add a little bit of extra colour to the top. Go to our colours and grab yellow. Make our way around. Go to our colours and grab the green. And if you get a little bit close to another colour, that's fine. It's just going to end up being smudged together, which is cool. Go to blue. Add in a bit of blue around here. I'm going to get a little bit close to the purple, that's fine. And then grab the purple. Add in a bit of purple around the base area there. And then in the center, we'll go ahead and grab the bottom left color again, so that we can go around the black area here. We can expand on this. We can really make it like nice and smudgy and just really push out the color and up towards the whites a bit more. We're trying to make it really messy. in the center and go to white then in the middle of the first column and just add in a bit of white that gets very close, if not overlaps some of it. The middle's meant to be quite scarce and a little bit sort of smudged together and beaten up a bit. And then we'll go ahead and go to our layers and create one more new layer. We'll drag it underneath the color blobs that we just created, the hard lights, and we're going to go ahead and change the blend mode from normal and change it to the option of overlay. I'm going to go to my brush library and I'm going to go to airbrushing and the soft brush and go to my colors, and we'll double tap at the bottom of the disk to select black. The size wants to be fairly small, around about maybe 4 or 3, if not smaller. And just towards the right hand side, because the light's coming from the top left, we're just going to introduce a bit of a shadow just underneath. So there's a little bit of a darker area off to the right hand side of all the blobs. So just a little something like this. It's just adding in extra tones just to try and convince us that that's the case. The bottom right of each one of the blobs, it's just a minor change, but it will add in just a little extra something. Next, let's go ahead and add in our paint brushes. So for this, what we're going to go ahead and do is we can group all of the layers we've made so far for the area here with all of our paint. We can group them and turn it off. We'll collapse the group down for a minute and create a new layer. We're going to go to our actions and we're going to go ahead and go to canvas, drawing guide, and turn it on, and edit the drawing guide to the option of symmetry, options, and vertical. And then you'll get a line that runs down the middle of the screen, and if you hit done, what you do on one side now is reflected on the other, so we can create a nice perfect shape. So if we go back to our brush library and we go ahead and grab calligraphy and the monoline brush, we go to our colors, color in the bottom left of the palette, and we're going to create some paint brushes. So for this, we're going to go ahead and make our brush size a little bit smaller, maybe around about that 3 or 4% mark. And we just want to create the handle area first, so just a little something like that that gets progressively wider at the top and then just rounds off at the top. So just a little something like that. Drag the color in. Then what we'll go ahead and do is create the top. We'll do it all with one color to start with. So for the top, we're going to go ahead and just create the metal sort of bracket that holds all the brush head together. So I'm going to draw in a horizontal line and pop my finger on the screen. I'm going to zoom in and then just create like a rounded area here, and then where the metal sort of creates nice grooves where it's been pinched in, I'm just going to create a little shape like this. And we just need to tidy up the top edge here, drag the color in, and we may have to adjust it afterwards, but for a moment we'll leave it like that. And then we're going to go ahead and go to our layers and create a new layer, tap on it and make sure it's drawing assisted, and then drag underneath the brush. Go to your colors and grab this color here, the bottom of the third column, and we'll just create the head of the brush. So we're going to go ahead and just create, so we're going to go ahead and just go a little bit wide and create a wide head brush. So I'm holding down with an arc, and then I can make it a little bit wider like that. And then we can go ahead and just go across. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make it nice and bumpy and lumpy. And as long as you link up the bottom as well, you can drag and drop the color into that space. If you zoom out, you should have a nice paintbrush. Now, for a minute, we'll go ahead and add in some colors and shading and then put it into position and create a second variation of it. So the top layer we're working on already, if we tap on it and we alpha lock it for a moment so we can't paint outside of it, we're going to go ahead and add in some color to it. So we're going to go to our colors and we'll grab white first of all, middle color in the first column. Go back to our brush library and go to painting. We can use the oil brush or we can go back and use turpentine. So I'll use turpentine, and with a brush around about 5%, I'm just going to go ahead and create some streaks down. Now what we need to do is we need to go to the layer and tap on it and turn off the drawing assist. So tap on it and turn off drawing assist so that the lines that we create at the top here are nice and unique to either side. So I'm just going to brush in some white on the top surface here, almost load it up on the top and then let it run down into the brush as well. I'm just streaking down and my lines are progressively curving a little bit more towards the center. Then with a good amount of color like that, we'll go to our colors and grab the bottom left color in the palette, and we'll add in some streaks in here as well using the darker tone. So these are going to be like gaps in the bristles at the top, and we can also just chuck in a little bit of variation in between some of the white. Now we can at any time, of course, then jump back to the white as well, just to sort of reaffirm that there's a good amount of color at the top. I'm just streaking outwards, branching that out Little something like that. Zoom out, as always, don't get lost in those details. You should have a little something like this. But what you can then do is go back, as I said, to your colors and grab the middle color. So just white in the first column and just brush in a little bit more, maybe on the top of the brush, and then maybe just some brighter areas off to the left. And that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to leave mine as it is. I'm going to go to my handle, tap on it, and I'm going to alpha lock it. So I can't paint outside of it. If I go to my colors and I grab the middle color or the bottom color in the second column, I'm just going to quickly just brush in and just fill in this top area, even though it's with this brush, that's fine. So I'm just going to brush that in, fill it all in with a good amount of solid color. Then what we'll go ahead and do is go to our brush library. I'm going to switch it to calligraphy or airbrushing and the soft brush. Reduce the brush size down to about 2%. Then go to my colors and grab the bottom left color in the palette and add in some shadows. So I'm going to go about 2 or 1%. And what we want to do is, because the light's going to be coming from the left hand side, first of all, the right hand edge over here is going to be darker. But you see there, if I draw, it's duplicating on either side. So we need to go back to the layer, tap on it and turn off the drawing assist. First thing I'm going to do is just run a shadow underneath that metal clip there where it's pinched to hold the bristles in place. Likewise, I'll create another one over here too, and that's going to give the person looking at this a little bit more of an understanding of what they're looking at. Increase the brush size up to about 2% and then just darken up the bottom right here, curving that round a little bit as well, darkening it up and blending it out. And then we'll darken up here, we'll blend it out to the left hand side. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can have little gaps in there, that's fine. As long as we've got a good amount of contrast really, and blend it out to the left. And likewise, I'm going to do the same again over here. You can see I've left a little bit of a gap and a little bit of a gap and a little bit of a gap there. I'm going to reduce the brush size once again down to 1% so I can just do this top area here as well. And again, just blend it out over towards the left hand side. You want to be nice and consistent with your pressure and your shadows as well. You should end up with something like that. And again, when you zoom out, it looks like this. So don't get lost in those details. Let's then also go to our colors and grab white in the middle of the first column. Increase the brush size back up to about 2% and add in your highlights. So of course they sit on the opposite side. So we can brush in a nice highlight over here in the metal. We can go ahead and reduce the brush size to 2 or 1%. I'm just fluctuating between it depending on where it needs to go. For example, here on top of the sort of clip, I'm going to go ahead and just bring in that highlight there. I'll go ahead and add in another one that just runs around here as well, with another one up here too. And we can just add in a highlight here underneath the clip, and maybe another one here as well. Just blend that out to the right. Now you can create like the odd little sort of streak in here that'll make it look like it's a little bit more metally, so like it's got a bit of a chamfer to it. To have some fun, just putting some random streaks in there, like so. And you can switch back to the shadows as well if you need to. Now the only thing then, once we've done that, is I want to go back to the bristles at the top, go to my color and change it to the dark tone, the shadowy tone at the bottom left of the palette. And just where the bristles are at the bottom, with a 3% sort of brush size, just sort of blend them in a little bit more. So darken them up towards the bottom. And grab your cursor and maybe just move it up just a little bit, maybe even just freeform it, maybe make it a little bit narrower, just so that the bristles sit in top of that, in the top of that area there for the actual metal bracket. So a little something like that. Tap on my cursor when I'm done. And then we just need to add in a tiny little highlight here on the handle. So we'll go to our layer again and go back to the handle. We'll go to our brush library and we'll grab white again in the middle of the first column. If you reduce the opacity though down to about sort of 40% and your brush size maybe up to around about 4 or 5, you should just be able to give that left edge just a really light highlight, like so. Just a little something like that. And then go to your color and double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black. And then darken up the far right hand side and underneath the top there. So just blending that down a little bit. I'm going on top of that metal bracket as well, and that's fine. Just sort of adding in a bit of a shadow underneath there. And then you should end up with something like this. Now what we can also do is actually be a bit cheeky. We can go to our layers, we can pinch the two of them together. We can then swipe it to the left and duplicate it. And the top one, if we go ahead and grab our cursor and move it off to the right, for example, tap on our cursor. So that one we're going to leave as is, but the one that's on our symmetry line still, so this one here on the left, we're going to go ahead and grab our eraser, tap on the eraser and go to the option of calligraphy and monoline brush. And with our brush size around about sort of 55%, I'm going to create a different type of brush. So I'm just going to essentially just start towards the top with a point and just make my way down. Now what I need to do is if I go back to the layer and tap on it and use the drawing assist, I can actually then go ahead and just run across the sort of symmetry point here, round and then in towards here. You've got to be a bit careful here. And then just erase the excess on the right hand side and you'll have created another type of paintbrush. So we've just used the same one twice and just been a little bit cheeky. You can go ahead and add some extra colour to the top of that if you wish. So if we then go up to our actions and turn off our drawing guide, we don't need that line in the middle anymore. If we go to our layers and we go ahead and turn on the group with all of our paint on, we can now go ahead and thread these brushes through the hole there. So we're going to go ahead and grab the one on the right, for example, for a moment. We're going to let that sort of get a bit in position. I'm going to rotate it down. I'm going to uniform it down in size as well, just a little bit. I don't want it a bit too big. I want it a little bit smaller than that. I want it to poke through here, but also then see the bottom as well underneath. So a little something like that for size. I'll make sure it's a little bit higher so it just sits above the edge of the area there with all the paint on. Then I'll go to my layers and grab the other brush. Grab my cursor, position it so it runs through the middle. Again, feel free to rotate it, scale it down in size. I'm going to scale it down just a little bit and have it just protruding through like that. If anything, I'll make it a bit smaller than the other one. And tap on my cursor when I'm done. Now at the minute, of course, you can see this area here. So all we need to do is we need to go into our layers. We need to go ahead and the top surface here, where we've got all the paint attached to, just tap on it and go ahead and merge it down. So the sides and the top are now one layer. If we then tap on it and use the option of select, then what we can do is we can go to our layers. We can go to our brush, or either one of them to start with. Go to your eraser. We'll use monoline brush, that's fine under calligraphy. And which brush have we got? This one here on the right. We're just going to erase this gap here. So everything in this space here. So just up and down and erase from that space. Then we go back to our layers and go to the other brush and do the same. Just erase from this space. That way now, if we tap on our selection tool when we're done, the brush is nicely run through. Let's then go ahead and add in some shadows off of these for a moment. So we'll go to our area here with all the paint on. We'll create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and tap on it and clip it to that shape. We're then going to go to our color, making sure it's set to black. And our brush is going to be set to the soft airbrush, around about sort of a 2% size. And what I'm going to do is, because the light's coming that way, I'm just going to rotate my angle a little bit. I want to push a shadow over here. So from this brush here, I'm just going to create some streaks outwards. Number of streaks just to build up until the center of the shadow is a little bit bright, should I say darker. Blend that out. And then likewise, I'll do it off of this one as well. So making sure that the angles are very much the same because the light source, of course, is the same. I'm just going to push that out and just let that sort of diffuse a little bit towards the edges and also darken up the center. You should end up with a little something like this. And then grab your eraser, tap on it and make sure you go to airbrushing and the soft airbrush. About 5% brush size, just blend out the edges, just blend them out a little bit towards the edge. And then change the blend mode of that layer from normal to overlay. And if you want to, you can double that up, swipe it to the left and duplicate it so that your shadows there look a little something like this. Talking of shadows, let's just add in the final shadows underneath. So we'll go ahead and go to our layers. We'll grab this shape here that's got all of our paint on and swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the two, we should have black still selected, so we can go ahead and the layer is alpha locked. We can tap on it and fill it. If it's not alpha locked, just tap on it. But once we've gone ahead and filled it, it will turn to black and we can then go ahead and tap on it and turn off its alpha lock. We can then go ahead and grab our adjustments, motion blur, and drag in a diagonal fashion somewhat from top left to bottom right, across like so. Then, once you've added in about a 26% motion blur, grab your cursor, move it down, and now we're going to need to distort this. So we're going to go ahead and grab distort. We're going to grab the top right node and bring that down. We're going to grab the top left node and bring that down. So that immediately flattens the shape. We're going to stretch that shadow out a little bit over here and bring it under a little bit like so. So I want to imagine it's kind of like holding itself up somehow, but with a little bit of a gap. I want it to be kind of floating. So a little something like that will do the trick. We can even just bring that top left node across. So that's going to be my final shape for that one. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to my adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right. And we'll just blur that out just a little bit up to around about sort of that 5% mark. We'll go to the layer, change its opacity from 100% down to around about 40. And if you take a look now, you should have this really cool shadow underneath, which just gives the whole design a bit more of a 3D element to it. Now taking a look at that, I'm going to go ahead and just lower that down just a little bit more, down to around about maybe 25 or 26%. Just a little bit of a shadow underneath there. And then just before we finish, I just want to make some minor adjustments to some of the shadows. So I'm going to go to my layers, and where we've got the surface with all the paint on, we're going to create a new layer above it. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my brush, and with the soft airbrush, color set to black, opacity set to about 40%, and the size around about sort of 5%. I'm just going to first of all just darken up in behind here, just in behind our brushes. I just want to kind of match up a little bit more the shadows. And then reduce the brush size down to about 3% and just round the edge, not quite on the side. So I'm just going to undo that for a second. Just go right down this edge here and just add in a little bit of a darker strip. Just a little one. And then just in behind our paints, I also want to add in a bit more of a shadow. Just in behind them, just a little bit, just to show that there's a bit of contrast. Move over to the green. I just want to add in a bit of a contrast in behind them, just to sort of help them step off of the surface a little bit more. And demonstrate the lighting as well. So just a little bit of color in behind them. Likewise, I'll do it in behind the black as well. And if we go ahead and we zoom in, we go full screen with 4, we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial, just a simple one on how to create this cool little fun design. As always, please be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram. I can't wait to see your finished creations. And as always, a massive thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon who help make these videos possible. If you want to get your name featured in videos, get access to a catalogue of over 60 tutorials with 3 more added every single month, sneak peeks and much, much more, come and join the family over on Patreon. And if you like this tutorial, you'll probably like this one on the screen now. So have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.